right, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Sean with Sandy Shores Ministries, and it's been such a blessing. I love you guys. I've been a little inconsistent lately with posts and all that kind of stuff because I've had some health hiccups. And I've gotten a couple emails and private messages and stuff like that, just asking how I was doing and making sure everything was okay, and letting me know that they were really enjoying what I'm doing, and happy that somebody's out there trying to spread the good word and make a little bit of a difference. So that's great. I definitely love you guys, and sometimes I've had my voice and sometimes I don't. So when I do, I'm going to take advantage of it. At least throughout this course of time when everything heals up, and that kind of rolls into what I'm going to be talking about, because sometimes things happen in our lives and we don't understand why. Sometimes we've got to make adjustments that we don't think we deserve. Like me personally, through this little health issue, I've had to cut back to part-time because I might not have my voice long enough, and I work a lot on the phone. So after talking for a long time, it starts to go away on me, and that's not very productive at all from a company standpoint. And I sometimes, when it first started happening, I was just kind of looking up and I was like, why, God? This is the time when I need to make some money. This is the time when I got things going on and I need to do this. I don't deserve this. Why? And I know others have asked the same question. I know there's plenty of you that have driven to work and been there all day long, and you're just waiting to get home. And Mrs. called you. She's got a pot roast going, and that's your favorite. You get off work, you go out to the parking lot, and you got a flat tire. What's the worst part is that flat tire is your spare. And you're like, God, I pray to you every day. I'm doing everything right. Why? Why is this happening to me? And sometimes, we're looking at it from a personal perspective, and we don't understand what's going on. We can't possibly understand what's going on. Sometimes things do happen, and we still have to find the grace that we've been given. And I think that through those hardships and through all that stuff going on is where we get wisdom. And when I was growing up, I was always told that, you get old and wise, wisdom comes with age. And I've kind of grown to believe that it's not necessarily completely true. I think that through the grind, through the rough of life, through going through the battles and rising up the hill on the other side, I think that that's where you get your wisdom. And in the Bible, there's 3 books that are known as the wisdom literature. And those are Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job. And the first one, Proverbs, throughout this whole book, great one, check it out sometime. It shows us that God is wise and He's just, that He's ordered this world to be fair. And, when you're looking at it that way, then the righteous, the good people are going to get good things. The righteous are rewarded. And then the wicked are going to get punished. Kind of a you get what you deserve mentality. And then you get to the next book of wisdom, or the next wisdom literature, Ecclesiastes, and now that guy, he was observing the world in a completely different way. He was thinking that we don't always get what we deserve. He said that the world isn't always fair, that life is unpredictable and sometimes hard. And woof, that's heavy right there. I mean, I can relate with that. I don't know about y'all, but I know that sometimes life has beaten me down. I know that sometimes I have been doing everything I can to reach the top, and I just slide back down. As soon as I get up there, it's like it's covered in mud, and I just slide back to the bottom. I may not even be able to make it back up. I'm tired now. I don't deserve this. So Ecclesiastes really gets you wondering. It really gets you thinking. Like, is God wise? Is He just? And, that's what we're going to roll into here. Because that question's being explored in the final book of wisdom, in the book of Job. In the book of Job, that's an interesting read right there. Now, here we are, like the beginning setting is a strange story that takes place up in the heavens, where he's describing something like this heavenly command post filled with all these angelic creatures that are called the sons of God. And they're all there. It's like showing up for work like we do. Like they're reporting for duty, punching time clocks, maybe putting lunch boxes in the break room refrigerator. And while all this is going on and you're seeing all these angelic creatures up here, God's doing something. And I bet you've done it. We're created in his image. That's probably where we got it from. Now, how many of y'all got a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter? How many of y'all ever showed off a picture of how cute your daughter is? How many of y'all couldn't wait to tell the world, all 898 friends that you don't know? How many of you will wait, just irking to get off work and make that post with your phone telling them that your son got honor roll? How many of you just wanted to post a picture saying that your puppy's cuter than everybody else's? Well, God's kind of doing that right here. God's up there pointing out this guy Job. Talking about his servant Job. Showing him, oh, how righteous and how good he is. Now, how cool would that be? How cool would that be to the guy that we're supposed to be praising up there, God? We're supposed to be lifting our hands and praising him. How cool would it be if he was the one praising you like he was Job here, talking about how good he is? How great would it be if he was talking about how good you are? And God's bragging. Then one of these angelic creatures, they come rolling up, they approach him. And in Hebrew, he's referred to as the Satan. Now the Satan, it's not necessarily a name, it's actually a title. It means the one whom is opposed. And so out of all these motley crew of angelic beings and creatures up there, this one, the Satan, he's that guy. He's the guy that always has something to say. I'm sure y'all know that guy. And he's up there, and he's the one questioning how God is running things. He's running his mouth talking trash about Job, saying he suggests that Job might not actually love God at all. He's only being a good person because God throws him some grace here and there. God rewards him, so might as well be good. And he's thinking that if God would just take away all of these good things that he gave to Job, we'd see who Job really was. He's up there just cloud hopping, talking trash, saying Job's working the system just to get what he wants. God knows better. But God goes ahead and he agrees to this little experiment. And he allows the Satan to inflict something on Job. If y'all ready, you know what's going to happen. Right here, where it gets sad, because this guy that God was just bragging about. Now Job loses everyone. And every single thing he cares about. Everything. Can you imagine waking up and everything's gone? Everything. Has your house ever been robbed? Mine has. And that wasn't even everything. At least they left the house. Job lost everything. It's super devastating and heartbreaking as you read it, because remember, he deserves none of this. God said so himself. He deserves none of this. What has happened to y'all when you hit rock bottom? I know that when I've hit the bottom, sometimes it's been really hard to raise my hand and praise God because it feels really heavy at that time. So I really, really look up to Job and what he does here, because he's just lost everything. And for the first couple chapters, Job is still praising God. And that's amazing, because sometimes that's really hard to do. But Job is still human, just like we are. No matter how long we try to fake it till we make it, sometimes things catch up to us. And here in chapter 3, that's where it starts to weigh down on Job a little bit, because Job's letting us know how he really feels deep down inside, what's really starting to take root in his soul, because he writes this crazy poem that reveals all of his devastation. And it's really a long, elaborate curse on the very day that he was born. After this, something that seems good at first happens. That's kind of how life is, right? Something that seems good at first. Well, some of Job's friends show up, and they want to visit, they want to offer their help, and that's always great, like when you have that shoulder to lean on, because we need that. That's why churches have small groups, and I definitely recommend getting in them. Churches have life groups, because it says in the Bible, God said we are not meant to be alone, and sometimes you really, really need somebody. And it was great. Job's friends come by, they're ready to show up, visit, offer some help. Just like when you broke your leg and you couldn't go to the store. So your friends came by and picked you up, and they even threw you a barbecue since you couldn't get up and flip your own burger. But when Job's friends show up, all of them are like, man, dude, what's up, bro? You must have done something horrible, man, to deserve all this. Like, we were talking on the way over here, and God's just, dude. Like, we know he ordered this whole world to be just and fair. So, like, you must be getting what you deserve, man. Whatever you're doing behind closed doors, you must have screwed up. And for the next 34 chapters, his friends and him are going back and forth. It's just all this very dense Hebrew poetry to where they're just having a screaming match and arguing back and forth, and his friends keep speculating what and why God might be, mad about, and why he might have sent such suffering upon Job. And like, this is when it gets really bad, because when your own friends, when your own family don't believe you and they turn your back on you, that hurts. It's like a knife in the back, and you don't know how to take that next step sometimes. And like, his friends even started making a list of all these hypothetical sins that Job must have committed. Now it's not even that he did something wrong. Now he must have done all these things wrong. Because they know better. They know how punishments work. They know how the universe works. They know how intricate it is. They know it all. They know what Job must have done. But nonstop, Job, he just defends his innocence. And we already know from the beginning that Job is innocent. But whether you know you don't deserve something or not, whether you know you're doing the right thing, but something painful might come through this purpose, and it's still going to be rough. And Job's been on this emotional roller coaster to where he was on higher ground, and now he lost everything. And at some moments, he's so confident. He's so confident that God is still just wise and he's just. And then there's other moments to where we remember just how human he really is, because he's doubting God's goodness. And at one point in time, even accuses God of being unfair, of being reckless, of being corrupt. I don't know if y'all ever curse God, but I know that sometimes prayer isn't always just calm, peaceful, and thankful. I've sometimes felt like I've had screaming matches, arguing with God, and my grandma once told me, that's okay. He's still listening. And by the end of this dialogue, Job is actually demanding something of God. And I don't know if you've ever done that, but if it's ever worked, if you've ever demanded that God show up and give you an explanation for what's going on, if it's worked, please send me an email. Please send me your testimony. I would love to check it out. Because Job's here and he's demanding that God can explain himself in person. And what does God do? He comes rolling in the form of this great storm cloud rolling over the horizon. But even with all that awe and all that majesty, he doesn't give Job a direct answer. He doesn't tell Job about the conversation with the Satan about how great he was. He doesn't tell Job about how he was bragging about him up in heaven. He does something unique. It's almost like he takes Job on this virtual tour of the universe. He's showing Job just how magnificent things are, just how complex the world is. And, as he's showing him all this stuff, it's like a Bruce Almighty moment. He asked Job if he would even be remotely capable of running or understanding all this for just one day. Just a day. Of course not. None of us could. He shows Job all the detail in the world. All this stuff that we might not see. All this stuff that we still, to this day, don't understand. But God, He knows all of this stuff intimately. He pays attention to the beauty and the operations of the universe in ways that we can't even fathom, and in places that we can't even see. And then to conclude like this enlightenment, if you will, God shows Job these two wondrous beasts, as it's described in the Bible, and bragged about how great they are, how dangerous they are. They can kill you without even thinking about it. Look how awesome it is, bro. Like, it's like when you got this big, tough-looking dog and you want to show it off to your buddies because you're like, yeah, nobody's breaking in my place. Look at Roscoe. Look at those jowls. And he's bragging about it. He's bragging about how cool these beasts are. And then God explains, he's like, Job, man, but they're not evil. They might be these huge, wondrous beasts, but they're not evil. They're actually just a piece of the puzzle. They're just a part of this good world that I've created. And then that's it. That right there, that's like God's defense in a nutshell. And it's kind of weird. I mean, when you're reading through it up to this point, you're like, well, all right. It's like I just watched Lost. What is all this about? I don't really get it. What's the point? And at least when I was praying and thinking about it and looking over it, it's like this. From Job's point of view, from his understanding, God was just being unjust. But when we look at things, God's perspective is infinitely bigger. Like, we can't even begin to describe or think about it or comprehend it. He's dynamically interacting with a whole universe of complexity when he makes decisions. And this right here, that is what God calls his wisdom. So Job, like, showing up and asking God to defend himself, or when we try to ask God to defend himself, that's kind of absurd. Because Job, he wouldn't have been able to get it. We can't comprehend the answer if it's spelled out for us. If God rolls out with some angelic cheerleaders with pom-poms jumping up and down spelling out an answer for us, we still wouldn't understand, because God's perspective is infinitely bigger. So in saying that, like, where does that leave us? I know that this left Job in a place of humility. He never quite learned why he was suffering. But yet, after all this, he was able to go forth. He was able to live in peace and in proper fear of the Lord. And what's cool is that's not where the book ends. Because after this, God doesn't just show up and like say, hey, my bad, dude. Here, I'll give everything back to you. No, he gives Job double everything he had lost. And you might think like, oh, is this a reward? Is God being like, way to go, bud? Attaboy. Nice job, Job. You passed this crazy elaborate test I just put together for you. But no. The whole book just pointed out, it just made the point that Job losing everything was not a punishment. So saying this, getting it back, is not a reward. God, in his infinite wisdom, decided to give Job this gift. We don't know why. But we do know that now Job has become the kind of person that no matter what adversity, whether good or bad or turmoil or just a terrific Tuesday, taco, whatever, like no matter what happens, he can trust in God's wisdom. And that's like the book of Job in a nutshell. And sometimes we have to kind of approach things in the same way. Like, we're not going to get this fancy virtual reality tour that he got. But through looking back and learning from the past, learning from the Bible, actually diving into the deep end of the pool of God's Word, we can actually learn from these parables, learn from these stories, learn from what's going on, because we're not going to understand what's going on. We can try. We can come up with all the explanations we want. We can do all the scientific tests we want, but we'll never completely understand, the works of God. That's where faith comes in. We got to have faith in God's wisdom. God is moving in ways that we can't see. We hear the phrase all the time, He works in mysterious ways. So when you hit that bump in the road, when you hit that pothole, when something happens in your life that feels like you're getting beaten down, just know that it's making you stronger and more appreciative of the gold to come at the end of the finish line. And definitely thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. Definitely drop me a line if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that. I love to hear how things are working in your life and how God's moving in your ways. We'll definitely check it out again next week. This is Sean tuning out. Have a blessed one.